But again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be together. I've really enjoyed learning more about Eddie and learning more about the work that you're doing to support entrepreneurship and leadership development across the country. I've really enjoyed getting to know Yendor and Margrit and some of the other team that's been involved in rolling out the work around strength. So I love to be able to speak into that and really affirm that and encourage that with you. So I want to share a few things with you today, briefly by way of background and what is all this strengths thing? Because I know for many of you, this is a new conversation. The conversation around strengths is not a new conversation globally. This is something that's happened for many years. In fact, it really started back in the 1950s, the 1960s. So many years ago, there was a conversation by a man named Don Clifton, who is the Clifton of the CliftonStrengths Institute and the CliftonStrengths assessment that you've all participated in. And at that time, Dr. Clifton was a psychologist. He was a researcher at the University of Nebraska and had a question about what will happen when we think about what's right with people rather than fixating on what's wrong with them. And as a higher ed administrator, many of you in this meeting will have heard questions like that before. And when a member of the research faculty comes to you with what was considered a crazy question at the time, what will happen when we think about what's right with people rather than fixating on what's wrong with them, the answer would be, well, what will happen is you'll never get tenure. Because people who did real research in psychology were not focused on studying people's weaknesses. They were focused on what's wrong with people, right? That's what real psychologists do in the minds of the faculty at that time. So they said what will happen is you won't get tenure and you'll probably get kicked off the faculty because that's not what real psychologists do. Well, Dr. Clifton's question was way ahead of his time. And I'm excited to report that we've got a better answer today about what will happen. His colleagues who were critical of his approach, thankfully were wrong. And what did happen is it took off. Now, Don led with talents that include futuristic and significance. Those talents are all about being able to see what's out in front before others. And significance is about having big ideas and a power behind them that really drives us forward. And I appreciate that he had those themes and he stuck with it throughout his career and really throughout his life, because today I'm pleased to report we are on the verge of 25 million people around the world in dozens of languages on every continent, in almost every country around the world, who now have had an opportunity to learn something about their strengths as a result of Dr. Clifton's life and certainly as a part of his legacy. So it's exciting that the Being Human group in South Africa is a licensed partner of Gallup, and really the people on the ground who are supporting this work and extending this mission as we go forward. Now, well, knowing that you're educators on this meeting today and administrators, I want to spend a little time sharing a bit about our story at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln in the CliftonStrengths Institute. Well, Dr. Clifton was a faculty member at the University of Nebraska before he went on to take this work and build the company that's become Gallup over the years. But Don's mission and his legacy really reside in Nebraska. And it's a real powerful moment for me to know that when I go into my office on campus, I'm literally across the sidewalk from where these ideas first started and from where Dr. Clifton's original research really began. So Gallup and the Clifton family have been very supportive in getting this work up and running at the CliftonStrengths Institute. There's three key parts to our mission. Part one is to serve the students at the College of Business at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. We have about 1,000 new students that join the college each year, and my role and responsibility and the focus of our team is to make sure that they transition well from high school to college. People are most open to development during times of transition. And for many students, for many adults, for many people, there's no bigger time of transition than that window of time between high school and college. Many of our students move across the country, move to Lincoln from around the world, and it's an opportunity developmentally to step in and do something new and different and exciting. And they get a lot of feedback during those first few days and weeks on campus. We make sure that the feedback they get from us is powerful. So that's the first part of our mission. The second part of our mission, beyond just the students in the College of Business, is to be a hub or a network to work with other parts of campus, to make sure that people across the University of Nebraska know their strengths and have opportunities to use those. And so we've really served as a partner locally. But the third part of our mission, which I'm so excited to be able to share today, is that our goal is to be a resource for educators around the world who want to learn from our experience, raise the bar, make it even better, and to serve students in your part of the world. So I'm excited to get to share that today. So I'm going to walk through a couple of the key programs that we're a part of. This picture makes me so happy because this is what it used to be like, right? When we could get in a room. This is the largest lecture hall on campus. It's so big that you can't even see all the students, but there's 379 seats in this lecture hall. And the first part I want to share with you today is what we do when students are brand new to college. So we have a program called Business Administration 111, which is just the course number in the catalog. It's a required course that students sign up for, and the title of the course is Investing in Strengths. So as you all think about how you can develop your own strengths and bring this conversation around strengths to your campus, one thing we've learned is it really starts to have some common experience as early as possible in the student's time. So again, this course is an 8-week course, which in our system is about half of a semester. The typical full semester is 16 weeks. So this is the first half of the semester. So those first 8 weeks that a student's on campus, they participate in this Business Administration 111 course. It's 1 credit. A typical course in our system is 3 credits. So 1 credit is less than a full course, and it's not a graded course. It's pass, no pass. Most of the students pass, not all of them, but most of them pass if they complete the work that we put in front of them. So again, we have about 1,000 new students that enter the College of Business each year. We put 379 of them in this lecture hall once a week to learn about strengths. And then we have another section, so we get another about 400. And then in the spring semester, we catch about 200 more. So each year, about 1,000 students participate in this. So there's a weekly lecture, which I do the best I can. But when you're in a lecture hall with 400 students, sometimes it doesn't connect with every single student. So I do the best we can. We create a lot of energy. We do a lot of activities in the classroom. But with that, there's also what we call a recitation section. Now, a recitation is a breakout, a team meeting, we call it, where of those 400 students that are in a lecture hall, they get into smaller groups of about 50 students. And each of those recitations has a student strengths coach as the TA or the teacher's aide or the facilitator for those sections. Also, each of the students in this program are paired with a student strengths coach, and they receive one-on-one coaching 2 times during their semester. And so if you think about how easy it is to get lost on a large campus, we've got about 20 or 25,000 students on campus, and it's easy for students to get lost in all of that. We make sure that they have an opportunity to learn about their strengths, to participate in the lecture and the classroom. But the best part of the class is those one-on-one conversations they get to have with their student strengths coach. We've been at this for a little while. We've had over 5,000 students come through over these last 5 years. And it's so exciting to think about how we're getting students off to a great start as a part of that. Now, as the leader of the lecture, the leader of the course, the name that shows up on the transcript, I'm excited about that part of it. But I mentioned the best part of the class is not the time in the lecture hall with me. It's those small group discussions and those one-on-one conversations where they can meet with the coach. And so I want to tell you just a little bit about those coaches. These are some of our coaches that are in the program this year. This is more what it looks like on campus this semester. We have been able to preserve some of the on-campus experience for students who feel safe being together on campus. We do have masks and there's social distancing and all that we've become familiar with over this last year. But the classroom environment, it's so exciting to get these coaches together. So our student strengths coaches are really the key to our success. And a lesson in this for all of us might be to think about how soon and how deeply we can get our students involved. I think if we trust our students to take ownership for the program, it means more and it'll last longer and be more effective. So we've really embraced that. We've got students who take a course. This is a full semester, 3-credit course in management 451. It's called Strengths Coaching Theory and Practice. So it's an upper level management course, a very rigorous course that they take to really learn how to be a student strengths coach. And then after they've been certified as a student strengths coach, we set them loose in the classroom and they lead those weekly recitation sections. So they're facilitating a 50-minute class once a week for 8 weeks. They work with other student strengths coaches to make that happen. and then they speak into this experience of the first year student. They coach each of those 10, so they each have 10 students that they work very closely with, and they coach them each twice during the first 8 weeks on campus. So again, strengths discovery is wonderful. The assessment is an incredible starting point in the discovery process. But one of the things I learned from Don Clifton in my early career at Gallup and in my partnership working closely as his research assistant, one of the things Don shared is that people develop best in response to another person. Some of us learn really well through technology. We take an assessment, we read our report, and that really works. But the growth and development that happens at a human level has to happen in response to another person. So we create that, the context for that to really thrive. We've had over 300 student strengths coaches over these last 5 years who've gone through our course, and we've turned them loose to be coaches, to lead these facilitation, these meetings, these team meetings weekly. And we're so proud of the growth and development of the students. The side benefit of this, and this was not our original intention, but one thing we've really grown to appreciate is that as a college of business, we're sending people into the world of management and into jobs who've been coaches already. One of the things we're really learning at Gallup and in the management science is that people don't look for a boss as much as they want to have a coach who really works closely with them, invests in their growth and development. And so we've got some of our student strengths coaches who have coached multiple semesters. Some of them have led 100 one-on-one coaching sessions during their time on campus. And that is an incredible way to prepare for a role in business, for a role in the workplace, for time as an entrepreneur in the future. So that's the first of our major programs, is that Business Administration 111, introducing students to strengths, investing heavily in these student strengths coaches so that they can really give it away to the incoming students. So we're real proud about that as a foundational part of our work. So again, as you're thinking about what this could look like on your campus, I would definitely encourage some kind of an introductory course or experience, new student orientation, as soon as you can catch them when they show up on your campus and engage in your programs, to give them a personal experience, not just with the assessment, but as best you can with some coaching. And Yendor and Marguerite do a great job through the Being Human program to certify strengths coaches in your country. And I know you'll have opportunities to learn from them more. They've been a key partner as a licensed partner for Gallup to really take this science and extend it into your part of the world. So the next program I want to talk about is more specific to entrepreneurs. These are some of my students who came to Gallup, actually, to our Gallup World headquarters to do a final presentation of their projects. So you see them kind of gathered here on the steps. This is what we call our Clifton Builders program. The Clifton Builders program is a program entirely focused on identifying and developing young leaders and entrepreneurs. So we have a very competitive selection process. We have over 100 applicants each year who apply for a limited number of spots. We have between 20 and 30 spots in the program. So it's a very highly selective, where we look for talent, people who want to drive change, who want to build something, do something different than others, and really lead well in the future of business. And so I know you all are focused on growing and developing entrepreneurs, and I think it's so exciting to get to share our program, which we call the Clifton Builders. So I know the systems can be a little bit different in different countries, but we set this up where it's an academic, either major or minor, for our students. So they major in management. They're all in our College of Business, but they can major or minor academically as a Clifton Builder. And so there's a group of courses that they take together as a cohort. So the students really get to know each other well as they take 3 courses together, and then there's some other elective courses they take. The Clifton Builders have 3 different tracks that they can pursue. Some of our builders they want to start a new business, and in fact, many of them do. A few of our students make more than their professors, which they're very excited about, and they mention often. So we have these business builders, these entrepreneurs. Whether it's some of them do landscaping, where they mow lawns, or they do snow removal, or different things that might be of value to their neighbors and their community. Some of our students have an online retail store where maybe they purchase tennis shoes, or they purchase different products online, and then they resell them. One of our students started a vintage clothing store where she purchased vintage clothing and put up a store on eBay and Amazon and different platforms, and she resells these clothes and has an incredible business. Even in her teenage years, it's really got it all started. So very excited to see that. The second group are team builders. There are entrepreneurs, and then there's a term, maybe it's a new term to you, but we call them intrapreneurs. So what's an intrapreneur? An intrapreneur is someone who wants to connect an idea to a customer, but they don't necessarily want to start a new business to do it. Maybe they want to engage within an existing organization. In many ways, during my 20 years at Gallup, I was an intrapreneur. I didn't start a new company, but I joined an existing organization, and then I helped to take ideas and grow them within that company already. So as a team builder, that's what they're focused on. And then the third group are in the social sector, focused on community building. They're very nonprofit motivated. They're thinking about starting an organization that would serve in their community. Maybe they want to enter the education sector and be a professor or lead a program someday. Many of our graduates that are graduating here in just a few weeks are accepted into law school. So they want to go to graduate school to become an attorney and maybe start a nonprofit or work in that space. So we know that entrepreneurship can look a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's about starting your own business. Sometimes it's about taking a role within an existing organization and really connecting ideas to customers within that framework. And sometimes it's about serving others through a more of a nonprofit or a social sector enterprise. So those are the pursuits that our builders have. There's two key things that we do in this builders program that I think you might appreciate and maybe take some of our experience and apply it in your world. The first is that we treat our students as if they are consultants. And so I teach them about strengths and employee engagement and well-being and different topics. And then we turn them loose in teams to actually go consult with a small business in our community. And so in the previous years, we've always had them work with a company, a startup company in downtown Lincoln, Nebraska, near our campus. So students can walk to the office, or they can take a short ride to the office, and we've had them consult with them. During this pandemic, we had to pivot, as we've all learned that word and done. And we actually were able to take our science of consulting with other small businesses, but we weren't bound to the location of campus. We were able to do the consulting over Zoom anywhere. And so we had people all across the United States, some 1,000 miles drive away, that were being consulted by our students. So we turn them loose in small teams. They learn about how to work together in a team. They learn about how to put their ideas out there. They consult with the top executives of these startup companies and give them advice about how to run their organization, how to lead employee engagement. So it gives these students and these are second year students in college. And so, maybe they're 19, 20 years old, and they're put in a position to give advice to a CEO of a company. That's the kind of experience the typical student doesn't get to participate in. And we get great reviews that's one of the highlights of their experience. So that's our consulting project. The last thing I want to share with you on this is that we have a program called our Builder Marketplace. The Builder Marketplace is where we turn students in this class, we put them into teams, and we have them come up with a product or a service that they actually design and build, and then they actually sell to other students, to faculty and staff, to other people within our community, and they sell their products. So it's not just teaching them about entrepreneurship and what it means to start a business, but in a safe environment, we create a context for them to actually go do that, not just to talk about it, but to actually go do it. So there's all kinds of different products and ideas and services that they've come up with. Sometimes it's more of a craft. Sometimes it's more of a service. Maybe there's t-shirts or clothing items. Some of our students have sold, raffle tickets and gift baskets and different things that they've come up with. So again, rather than just teach them about entrepreneurship or teach them about employee engagement or teach them about their strengths or entrepreneurship, we do that, but then we put them in a place where they go apply it in a safe environment and practice that and learn from that experience. So we're very proud of the programs that we have and excited to share that with you. So I want to take a moment now and share a bit about strengths. But before we do that, I want to hear a bit about your strengths. So you all know the chat functions on Zoom. In the chat, I would love for you to just chime in with what's one of your top 5 themes of talent? What's one of your signature themes? For many of you, you've just learned about your themes of talent, or strengths is a newer conversation to you. So would love in the chat, if you don't mind, just share one of your top 5 themes. My top 5, as you can see on the background behind me here, are maximizer, relator, belief, woo, and positivity. So yeah, I'd love to see some of the themes that come through for you that are in your top 5. And for many of you, this is a new, some new terminology. These words might be new for you. So let's see them here. Okay, great. Here they come. I see achiever, developer, another with maximizer. Very good. Responsibility, includer, strategy or strategic. Yeah. Discipline, positivity, command. Here they come. Look at them. All right. Focus, restorative, strategic, relator, individualization, competition, ideation, communication, intellection, consistency, strategic. Very good. I love to see those terms come across. For some of you, you're wondering what language I'm speaking right now. You've not heard all these words before. You're about to learn more about these. Yeah. Relator, activator, arranger, intellection. Keep them coming. Really good. There are no top 5 themes that are perfect for an entrepreneur or for a leader or for an educator. All 34 themes are there because there's a group of talents that people have shown to use and be successful in the work that they do. And so the best top 5 are your top 5. Now, I think that having maximizer, relator, belief, woo, positivity is wonderful, but that's who I've been my whole life. And so it's exciting to use my themes. I don't want you to try and use my themes. I want you to learn more about yours, and you've got a great opportunity to do that through the program today. I'll just read off a few more themes before we move on. I see relator, activator, arranger, intellection, responsibility, connectedness, futuristic, input, connectedness again, maximizer, restorative. Really good. So those are the themes of talent that show up on the CliftonStrengths assessment. So through that assessment, you were able to go through a series of questions, these paired comparisons that you had to decide which theme is, or which statement is more like you. And then through a process, Gallup's algorithm and the science behind the assessment helped to sort your top 5 themes, or sort those statements into 5 themes of talent. So I had an opportunity at Gallup to work at the very beginning of this assessment. I started in the year 2000. The assessment had just been released, and we were putting some finishing touches on it. There was a now famous book called Now Discover Your Strengths that was published in 2001, very soon after I started at Gallup, that put a code in the book, and it created a venue for people to really learn about their strengths. And since that time, as I mentioned earlier, more than 25 million people have had the opportunity to learn about those themes. Things like developer, relator, belief, significance, futuristic, individualization, empathy. If I were to go back through the chat, I suspect we've seen at least 20, maybe more, even of the people on this call have seen many of those themes come together. This is a graphic you'll probably see later through some of your programming later today. But the talents sort themselves into 4 domains. And when we think about leaders and entrepreneurs and how they bring their talent to life, these are the different domains that they sort into. So there's an executing domain. This is about how do you get things done? Talents like achiever or belief or discipline or restorative. That's people's approach to how they accomplish their work. Restorative is the theme that actually in this last semester showed up the most common among the students in our program at the college. So we're starting to see that more. Restorative is about how do we put things back together, and they easily spot problems and think, how do we fix this? And so we're seeing more and more of that. And certainly our world has given all of us opportunities to fix problems. The second domain is influencing. On your report, these might show up as a yellow color there or gold color. These are themes about how do you go and convince other people of your ideas? How do you convince them to come with you? We have a lot of influencing talent among our students in our College of Business, especially in our Builders program. Entrepreneurs often bring some influencing talent to the situation. They like to take charge of a situation, a theme like command or significance that brings a real power and importance with them. Maybe it's woo, which for many of you is probably a new word. Woo is about winning others over. It's being very extroverted, liking to go bring other people and convince them to come with me and be a part of this. Competition has traditionally been one of our most common themes we see among students. Competition is a lot about, where do I stand? How does my performance compare to the performance of others? And I need to know where I stand in order to really achieve. I have a son that's 16 years old who has competition number one, and I'm learning a lot about that theme as a parent these days. So very excited about those influencing themes. The third category is relationship building themes. These are people who think about, how do I connect and serve other people in meaningful ways? I heard some of these themes in the discussion earlier. Empathy was one that was called out. Positivity is about bringing energy to a situation. Relator is about meeting with a smaller group of people or having some deep, trusting relationships with a few people. Harmony is about a need for emotional clarity and addressing conflict and dealing with it so that we can have that clarity and move on. Adaptability is probably the theme that I've wished I had during a pandemic. People with high adaptability need that time pressure, and they're able to make adjustments when plans change. And all of our plans have changed over the last year. And people with adaptability tend to be able to just kind of roll with that and manage from one relationship to another. And then the final category is strategic thinking. This is one where we often see very high among faculty, not always as high among students, but people who choose to do higher education oftentimes bring a strategic thinking talent set with them as well. Things like context and appreciation for the past and how we got here, right? Or maybe it's about futuristic and really thinking big about where we're headed into the future. Sometimes there's an analytical talent, which brings a mindset that we need to prove it. We don't just want to accept everything when we see it, but we want to know, is there evidence that this is true? Or ideation. A lot of great entrepreneurs bring ideation, where they're always thinking about and wondering about possibilities and sorting about that. So these 34 themes are all wonderful. They're all there because groups of successful people used words like these to explain the secret to their success. So as you learn about your own themes, I think by now you've probably all looked on this chart to find your own themes. Some of you among your top 5 probably have one theme in each of the 4 areas, and then one of them would have 2 themes. Some of you might have all 5 themes in one domain. Maybe all of your themes are in relationship building or strategic thinking or executing or influencing. Our research at Gallup doesn't say that it's better to have themes spread across the domains or to have a concentration in one area. At an individual level, what's best is that you know what your themes are and that you use them well. There's this mindset that people need to be well-rounded. We don't believe that people need to be well-rounded, but probably their leadership team does. So as you think about entrepreneurs, sometimes the big decision you make is, who do I hire to join as my second employee? If you're a sole proprietorship, or if I'm the only one doing the work, that's fine. But when I go to hire somebody else, how can I find someone who's a complementary partner? And again, you'll learn more about the power and edge of strengths as you engage with the curriculum more today. But thanks for engaging in that conversation and sharing some of your own themes. One thing I do want to affirm here is that themes come at us from different places and in different ways. And there's no key, like you have to have this theme to be an effective leader or to be an entrepreneur. And so on the screen here, I'm showing you the talents, the top 5 themes of some of the leaders that I admire on our campus at the University of Nebraska. So our chancellor, who's the person in charge of our entire campus, Ronnie Green, he does have one theme in each of those domains. He leads with a lot of achiever. There's some strategic that comes into play. He's got some significance and connectedness and self-assurance. The dean of our College of Business doesn't bring themes from each of the 5 domains. Kathy, her themes really come from strategic thinking primarily, and then also some great executing talent. But that doesn't mean, I mean, she's a wonderful person. It doesn't mean that she doesn't have any relationship building talent, but her real strength comes out of those other themes. Marco Barker is our vice chancellor at the campus level for diversity and inclusion. As we've really sought to develop an environment that embraces students from all kinds of backgrounds, he's really led an office effectively in getting that started. He comes at things from a different perspective with deliberative, responsibility, relator, strategic, analytical. He can take a complicated situation and work his way through it. He's a great listener. He thinks deeply about things. He doesn't jump into things. And a lot of times his role is to diffuse some of the drama in a situation rather than to create it. So he gets put into some difficult situations, very thoughtful, and takes care of that. Charlie Foster is our Assistant Vice Chancellor for Inclusive Student Excellence. You see, she's got some themes across the board. Charlie and I actually have 3 themes in common in our top 5. We both have maximize or relate or positivity. And I've learned to appreciate her approach to leadership. And then Moy Padilla is a director of a program where we take high school students that are high talent, low income, with big potential, and help connect them to the university. So you can see his themes there as well. So my point in all of this is that any combination of top 5 themes can be effective in a leadership role, in a faculty role, as you move forward with your programs. So I want us to fight the temptation that there's a correct set of top 5 themes, or there's, these are the 5 that you need to have if you want to be effective. All 34 themes are wonderful, and we see them come into play in different ways. Throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to coach about 2,000 people, and I've seen many different combinations of top 5 themes. There are there's over 250,000 different possible combinations of top 5. So it's wonderful to think about how unique we are as individuals. I've never met anyone who's got the same top 5 as me, and I've been watching. So if you have maximizer, relator, belief, woo, positivity as your top 5, put it in the chat. I want to meet you later. But yeah, the themes are really unique and powerful. So a couple of points to land on that. As it relates to strengths-based leadership and development here, why does this matter? I mentioned about well-roundedness. It's important for us to all be self-aware. It's not critical that we all are good at everything. We need to figure out, what do we do best? Don Clifton used to say, stars have points. And it's not that stars are round, they have points. There's certain things that we're all great at and certain things that we're not so great at. So our goal here is to find out, what are we great at? And then how do we partner well with others or use some of our other themes to accomplish those things that might be more challenging for us? So we don't say to ignore your weaknesses, but we need to manage those weaknesses, but really put the focus on developing your strengths. I put on here, lead by imitation. It's tempting to follow a leader who, maybe the leader in your role that was in the role before you was effective. And so it would be tempting to try and be like them. That's what we call leading by imitation. We all follow someone in a leadership role, but I think it's better that we figure out, who are we at our best, and be authentic to that, rather than to lead by imitation and try and be like the last person. Maybe we need to get to the same outcomes as the last person, but we need to do it in a way that's really meaningful and effective. And then finally, one of the best things that we see in student development is that strengths really help give us more confidence. They help us to be more confident in who we are, and it feels good to use our strengths. It gives us a certain power that, not knowing our strengths, we might not have that same level of confidence. So when we get into the why of strengths, sometimes people will ask, and I love it when they ask, they say, well, strengths is an interesting conversation. It's nice that you say nice things about us, and it's an interesting learning experience, but what's the real point of strengths development? Why do you really do this? Well, why we really do it is twofold. We've learned that people who focus on their strengths are 3 times as likely to report having an excellent quality of life or high well-being, and they're 6 times as likely to be engaged in their jobs. So those are our two big reasons, or 2 big things that we point strengths development at. Can we help you to have a better job in the future, and even be more engaged with school today? If you're a student, that's your occupation. That's what you're focused on. And then also, can we help you have a better life overall? And I know that's a big ask, but there's evidence in the research that when you operate out of your strengths, that's more likely to be able to happen. So employee engagement, just to mention what this is all about. When we're engaged, we're involved with, enthusiastic about, and committed to our organization. So students who are engaged don't just show up for class, but they do. That's the involvement part. but they're emotionally engaged in class as well. They're enthusiastic about school. They love what they're learning. They volunteer. They, in a Zoom class like this, they participate in the chat. They ask good questions, which you're going to have an opportunity to ask some good questions as I bring things in for a close here in a couple minutes. Would love to know what you would like to know, how I can serve you. So bring that enthusiasm. That's part of engagement, and also a different level of commitment to the organization. They're advocates for their school or for their company. And they love to talk about how great it is to work here or how proud I am to be a student at this institution. So that's what employee engagement is all about. And we really do want to drive employee engagement. And a big part of that is understanding what our strengths are. The second component about this, or the second thing that we point our work at, is so in addition to engagement, is well-being. And well-being is becoming a much more valuable conversation these days. Obviously, in a global pandemic, we're more intentionally thinking about, are we serving others well? How do we make sure that we're helping others have a life well lived, not just in their career, although your career well-being or your purpose well-being is a key part of our overall well-being. Having a good job helps to set you up for success in other areas of life as well. So being an entrepreneur, being a manager or leader is a key part of your well-being, but it's not the entire story. We also want to make sure that our students and those that we serve have high social well-being. Are there good relationships or love in their life, people that they can count on when things are hard? Their community well-being, do they feel safe on campus or in their neighborhood or in their community? Are they proud to be in that community? Do they know their neighbors? That sort of thing. Then certainly financial well-being. And there's a lot of impact of a pandemic on our financial well-being. The thing that we've learned in conjunction with some of the world's best economists is that it's not all about how much money you make, but it's really about the relationship you have with the amount of money that you make. So do you live within your means? Are you able to make good choices with your finances? Do you live on a budget today? Do you make sure you manage your expenses within your amount of income? But also, are you saving for the future in a meaningful way, for retirement or for investing in others and things that are part of your future? And then finally is your physical well-being. Certainly when we talk about well-being, that's a big part of it. Physical well-being is about eating healthy foods, getting the right amount of exercise, and also getting the right amount of sleep and high quality sleep, which is a challenge for a lot of college students. Especially we spend a lot of time in the middle of the night on video games or studying or up with friends, and being well rested is a key part of all of our success. So I'm not modeling that very well today, being up in the middle of the night to be with you all, but trust me, I sleep really well. I enjoy a good night's sleep. So that's what well-being is about. So it's not just about what are your strengths and this is so exciting and it feels good. It really does drive our performance in terms of our confidence, in terms of our employee engagement or student engagement, and also in terms of our overall well-being. So the last thing I want to leave you with here are some key experiences that we're learning that college students need to have in order to be successful in their future. So the Gallup organization, in conjunction with some other top universities, pursued some research where we studied over 30,000 alumni of college, people who had graduated from their college or university and were out in the workplace. And we studied people who had high well-being and who had high employee engagement. They really were engaged in their jobs and were successful alums of the college. Then we went back and said, what were some of the experiences you had while you were on campus? Tell us about your time at the university. And our goal was to try and study what are the things we can do today on campus that can help set our graduates up for success in the future. And we found 6 things that I want to share with you now. So the first set of things that we learned really load into this factor of emotional support. So along the lines of well-being, are we feeling like we belong? Do we feel cared about? So the 3 items or the 3 things that I think we can all put as a to-do list. Is there a professor who makes you excited about learning? Every student should be able to say yes to that. Many of you are the professor that students would say makes them excited about learning, but we definitely need to be intentional about that. Are there professors who care about you as a person? Do you have students who are comfortable reaching out to you if they need a reference for a job, or if they're dealing with a relationship challenge, or they're just not sure who to talk to. Is there an adult on campus who cares about them as a person and supports them and believes in them and champions them? And then is there a mentor who encourages their hopes and dreams? Now, again, some of you play all three of these roles for some of your students. I know that some of you care about every student on your campus, but the goal here isn't just what's your intention, it's what's their lived experience. It doesn't count unless they felt it, unless they believe that it really happened. And less than 14% of college graduates were able to say yes to all three of these. So we've got a lot of room to grow in terms of our ability to meet these emotional support needs. And then second, there's three components that are more around experiences or deep learning that I think we really can reinforce on the call here. So these three are first, working on a long-term project that takes a semester or more. So your entrepreneurship programs that you're leading, or the different enrichment programs you have, anything you can do that spans more than one semester or more than 1 year, where the learning and the experience builds off of another is wonderful. So I really want to encourage that. And I know many of you are leading programs with cohorts of students that go through a shared experience throughout their college journey. And I think the evidence shows that that's really valuable. Second is this internship or a job that applies what you were learning. If you're an entrepreneurship major and you've never started a business, even in a safe classroom project kind of a way, we're probably not doing it well. We've got to trust our students to go out there and do it in a safe environment, to refine their thinking and really build that muscle that says, I can do this, and to apply what they're learning, not just to spend years on campus learning and then, like we throw them over the fence on graduation day and say, well, we hope it works and good luck. And then hopefully you'll donate back to the university someday, right? And then finally is getting involved on campus, getting involved in extracurricular activities and organizations. I think there's a relationship need that we have, but it's also a need to apply what we're learning among a group of peers. And so again, at the bottom, you can see only 6% of college graduates said that they experienced all three of these. But the successful college graduates who were engaged in their job and thriving in their well-being were much more likely to say that they were able to experience all of these three things. So those are the 6 key experiences. Gallup's got some new information about that on the website, and I'm sure Yindor Mahrit can help connect you with resources if you have additional questions about that. So get your questions ready. I want to share some key takeaways that I've had from my experience here in these next 2 slides, and then I'm going to open it up for some Q&A. So if you decide that, hey, this sounds really interesting, I'm excited about what it could look like to build strengths into my campus experience and think about what we can do with this, here's what we've learned from our experience. Being a strengths-based organization, a strengths-based culture at a university or a college or in a business takes more than just the strengths assessment. We definitely want you to have your constituency, your students, your faculty and staff, your administrators learn about their strengths. But don't just pass out codes and then assume that we did strengths, right? Everybody's done their strengths. It starts with an executive sponsor. There needs to be a champion. At the University of Nebraska, I'm privileged to have many executive sponsors. The chancellor, the dean, many of the leaders across campus believe in their strengths and know what their strengths are and really support this work. And that's been a key to our success. Second is, make sure that people do have a common language around strengths. Share access to the CliftonStrengths assessment. Again, the team that you have can really help you to get access to the strengths, just like you did as part of this conference. The Being Human group will be able to help connect you with access to the CliftonStrengths assessment. And the assessment's available in many different languages and is accessible for people across the board. Third is to build an internal network of coaches. We've got this tagline around Gallup these last few months where what we've learned is that people want to move from boss to coach, and that everybody needs a coach. You've all had an opportunity to learn about your strengths as part of the conference and the assessment, but really would encourage you to take it to the next level. Some of you need to engage with a coach personally. You need to invest in your own growth and development, and contract with Being Human to learn more about your own strengths and have a one-on-one conversation to learn more deeply about your strengths. Or maybe you want to become a coach, and they've got Gallup's blessing to teach you how to be coaches and really to license you and certify you to be a coach within your community. At the University of Nebraska, we've got over 50 certified coaches on our payroll among our faculty and staff and administration. I'm not the only one. There's not enough of me to go around. Even if I was up in the middle of the night every day, there wouldn't be enough hours. And honestly, I'm not right for everybody. There's different preferences and different experiences that are valuable. So I really would encourage you to consider building that network of coaches. And then finally is to integrate strengths into everything that you do, to integrate it into courses, to integrate it into how you do performance management and performance appraisals of your employees, to integrate it into new employee orientation, to integrate it into how you do recognition or celebrations well. If strengths is seen as an event, it probably won't serve you very well. I mean, it's an interesting thing. If the only interaction you ever have about strengths is as a part of this conference, I hope you enjoy the conference. But if you really want to be a great organization, it's got to be more than an event. I hope that you don't see today as the day that you learned about strengths and that was kind of the end of it. I hope you see this is the day you learned about strengths and this is the beginning of it. We can all really grow and develop throughout the rest of our lives. So finally, here's some lessons learned that I have from our experience I want to leave you with. The first thing, and I don't always do this well, so partly I teach about this to remember I need to do it. Don't be defensive, but to be curious. It's difficult sometimes to go into a situation where there's skeptics or people who don't believe in the theory or the research, and the temptation is to be defensive and try and fight for your approach and to prove that you're right. There's a component of that that's valuable, but I've learned that's better if we go into a situation being curious. And when you've got somebody who challenges you to really better understand what their motivation is, why do they feel challenged about this, and be curious, ask great questions. Great coaches ask great questions. So I think that's good advice. Second is we've got to create high expectations, particularly for our students. At my campus, at my university, and even in my classrooms, I think last semester I didn't set high enough expectations for some of my students. We were in a pandemic. We really wanted to make sure they were taken care of, but I think we lowered expectations too much. Lowering expectations doesn't lead to engagement. High expectations with big support is what really leads to engagement. And when we engage our constituency, that's when we really see performance improvement. So I think maybe the summary there would be just to believe in your students and set those high expectations. Third is one that I love. It's that there's no excellence without celebration. You can't just work hard on something and finish it and then move on to the next thing. You need to pause, celebrate that, and inject some good energy into that. It creates these moments where that felt good. We really create an event around that. I want to do it again. So don't overlook the importance of celebration. And then finally, to share what you're learning. There's a lot of scholars out there who are doing this work and who want to learn with you and learn from you in this. And so there's plenty of work to go around. You're not the only one doing this. I care about your work and want to be a resource for you. I know that my great partners at Being Human want to celebrate that. So Yendor Mahrit are here to be a resource for you. They want to learn what you're learning. They want to serve you in great ways as you partner in this work with Eddie and your constituents on campus. So those are the ideas I wanted to share with you today. I'm going to turn off the screen share here, but I have a surprise for you that I wanted to share as we go into question and answer. I'm going to ask Jordan. Jordan, if you're willing to turn on your camera, I know it's 2:00 in the morning where you're at as well, but if you want to join us here. So Jordan Jansen Van Buren is one of my students who I've really appreciated getting to know and getting to work with over these last few years. Good morning, Jordan. Good
morning.
It's the middle of the night. I have to say, Jordan, and I'm gonna see if I can spotlight your video so everybody can see Jordan work with us. There you go. Perfect. So Jordan, now I have to say, Jordan and I had class together last year, and some mornings it was hard to get you to show up for a 9:30 class. So to get you to show up for a 2 a.m. class is really great. So thank you, Jordan, for being with us. Jordan, let me just ask you. Let me just ask you a couple of questions. So, first of all, why are you so interested in this group from South Africa? Maybe we should start there by way of introduction.
So on my dad's side, he is from Bloemfontein, South Africa. He was born and raised. He moved to the United States when he was 23. So I do have a lot of family out there in the Cape Town area and Johannesburg. Some of them have farms and whatnot. So I go out there and visit a lot, and I just have close ties. So I'm just interested.
Awesome. Awesome. Jordan, they want to know what are your top strengths?
So my top five are includer, consistency, discipline, communication, and oh, I don't have these memorized.
It's early.
Yeah, there's four.
Yeah, yeah. So Jordan has been a participant in all the programs I talked about, actually. She was a student in the Business Administration 111 course as a first-year student where she learned about her strengths. She was also in the Clifton Builders program. So she was stuck in my class a couple of semesters where we learned about entrepreneurship. She was part of the consulting teams that went out and gave advice to a startup business. She also was part of a team that created her own business as part of the class experience and participated in that builders marketplace. And she was selected and developed as one of our student strengths coaches. So not only has she learned about her own strengths, she served as a coach to others. So Jordan, I'd love if you'd share just a couple of experiences you've had in your interaction with the Clifton Strengths Institute that might be of interest to the educators here today.
Yeah. So I think other than the chances to learn more about myself, it's really helped me because in certain situations, especially academically, just knowing like yourself and your strengths helps a lot. But some of my favorite experiences would definitely be the first one would be our consulting project, where we got to go hands-on and go, like Tim talked about, in the local community, go to a startup CEO and be in communication with like the top guy there. And you're taking everything that you learn and being able to go present that to Gallup and do hands-on consulting like you talked about. It's really nice to not only learn everything in the classroom, but be able to go exercise that. So to go out there just gave a big like adult feel and, take everything you learned. Another thing is we got certified in high performance teams. That's a Gallup certification. And something that I appreciated about that was I got to then use that. I'm on the business track as a builder. I get to use those materials that we gather and use that towards my project, and that's starting my own business. And I chose to do a bakery. I'm a big baker. So yeah, I use those things. And as far as being a student strengths coach, I think the coolest experience is having my own classroom recitation to lead with a group of coaches and really just put everything you learn about leadership and strengths out on the table and help influence people who are so new to the whole concept. And you grow really important relationships with your co-coaches and also students, and to have people look at you as a mentor and to get positive feedback from that is really fulfilling. And yeah, I just like those.
That's so great. Okay, so now we're going to turn to Q&A for the audience here. If you've got questions you want to ask in the chat, we'd love to hear what we might be able to do to serve you. And Jordan, I'll take the spotlight off here, so you can see Jordan if you want to, but there will. Thank you for sharing your time with us in the middle of the night here. What questions do you have? Maybe Marit, I see you in the studio there. Do you have any questions that you'd like to start us off with here in the minutes we have remaining?
Yeah. Dr. Hodges, I think the one question that I think may come up is the fact that, there's such a huge difference, or in our minds, between the students, universities in South Africa and the universities, obviously, in the United States. And I was wondering if Gallup has any research that they have conducted around universities globally and entrepreneurship, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. They have, and one thing I've appreciated about Gallup is that they are very transparent about the work that they do. So you can always search. I would just recommend you go to the Gallup website, and if there's a topic you're interested in, if you just do a search for entrepreneurship, you'll find dozens of articles that come up. Now, some of those are public release studies that are done in the United States, that are based on a population or survey of Americans, but many of them are around the world. About 15 years ago or so, Gallup made a 100-year commitment to do a Gallup World Poll, where now we're in 98% of the world's population is represented in this World Poll. So if you're a researcher who's thinking about job creation or access to finances or the role of women in the workplace in different parts of the world, you can actually search even by country to see what are the differences around that. Another topic that you can see in our global database is around well-being. Well-being in the pandemic and unemployment is different in different parts of the world. So yeah, that's a great question. And there's a lot of research out there that in that world poll that I think would be of interest.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think Yendor, maybe you want to just lead us in some of the questions that some of the members in the Zoom meeting may have.
Right. Thanks, Margriet. So just to open, the chat function is available there for you to answer or ask any types of questions. But perhaps I can just kick off with a question that I was wondering about. Tim, you mentioned about the impact of the pandemic, and what we've seen is that people with high strategic and high execution really struggled with not being able to do stuff in the pandemic. And those that have traditionally been undervalued, the people with empathy and harmony, really came to the party in terms of helping us think through and feel more comfortable with the changes that we were experiencing. Is that sort of very similar to what you guys experienced during the pandemic?
Yeah, and it's affected everybody so differently. So I'm careful not to say, well, you should do this because I don't know, your situation. But when it comes to well-being, I think we've got to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that people's basic needs are met. A lot of well-being is focused on how can we take your current situation and make it better. And we're thinking about people who are already well-adjusted and doing well and ready to get better. But I think we also have to really look at it from the standpoint of there's people who are really hurting right now. And a lot of our efforts from a policy standpoint need to be focused on how can we help those who are in the hardest of the situation right now, who did lose their job, who did really struggle. But I also think we can't just use the pandemic as an excuse for everything and a reason to hide. I did it. There were times I was like, oh, we have to do school on Zoom. I won't be as effective this semester. Well, what if I could actually be more effective on Zoom? When I think about the differences as an instructor, I love being in the classroom with students, but there's some students who get intimidated when a professor walks up and has a one-on-one conversation. But if we're in a Zoom meeting, I can do a private chat with them and it doesn't feel as intimidating. And it's a way to be able to see that. I've led classes, I know you have as well, where you've got an audience on Zoom where everybody's camera's on and maybe you've got 20 people in the class. You can see everybody's faces at the same time. Nobody's got their back to you or anything else. Everybody's looking right at the camera. So I think we've got to look at the pandemic as an opportunity to see where can we be first to market. We've got some students who created masks that, 3 years ago, no one would have started a business to create face masks, but we had students who created masks with Santa Claus on it and sold a bunch of them around Christmas. Well, what a great idea and way to capitalize on our current environment. And so I think whenever there's a challenge, it creates opportunity and great entrepreneurs are always looking for that niche. So great question. I see some more in the chat. What else do you see?
Yeah, so Tim, Tayo is asking a great question, which is, can a strength be a limitation? So, and then the other question from Annika, which is quite an interesting one, is how were students able to coach businesses without experience of actually operating a business?
Yeah. Okay. So the first one, and you may address this more later today, but can a strength become a weakness? That's a popular myth. And I'm going to say it's a myth rather than a fact. We don't have a lot of evidence of people overusing their strengths. I think the real challenge is that people don't use their strengths enough. So are there times where maybe my woo can be a little bit much and I need to dial it down? Yeah. I've gotten that feedback before, that maybe we don't have to say hi to everybody in the room before we leave. In fact, my wife and I often take 2 cars to social events because I tend to want to stay longer than her. So there's ways to manage our strengths and not to overdo it, but that's much less of a problem than people who aren't using their full potential. For that second question, so how do we set students up to consult with businesses essentially before they're officially ready, right? I mean, I think that's at the core of the question. One thing we do, I mean, we select them very carefully. So this is a competitive program, and we know that there's students like Jordan who have a different level of talent and an energy to create ideas and energy. And so we start by selecting the right people. But once they're in our program, we just invest in them like crazy, and we put them in a situation where they can go learn. I want to set them up for success. So I talk to the CEO of the company, explain the program, but then I introduce them to the students and I say to the CEO, unless you really need something, this is a student project, not me. It's not that interesting for the students to watch me work. I'd rather they actually do it. So we manage expectations, but I think we just don't believe in our students enough usually. They're more ready than we often give them credit for. And if you try it, I'm sure you'll be pleasantly surprised at how much they can accomplish and how great they can be.
Fantastic. There's a question from Lucas saying about limitations in South Africa, people focus. Lucas, do you want to just give us a little bit more around your question so we can engage with that?
Yes, good morning, everyone. It's good to speak basically all over the world. I hope you can see my picture. I'm actually a retired professor in South Africa. I've been through about 4 universities. I'm a scientist. I've moved into engineering. I've published over 150 papers, and I've lectured literally thousands of students in South Africa. But you know, I think in South Africa we are facing quite some severe challenges. I think as academia we need to focus, and that limits us a lot. We can see that there are lots of needs out there. We need technology transfer. We need to create jobs. We need to mentor students, but we don't have the capacity as professors. Then our surroundings at the university, and I'm at University of South Africa, which is one of the biggest or the biggest university in South Africa. We are surrounded with inefficiencies, weak support structures, no finances. So I want to pose a very difficult question. How do we get out of here? What should be our priorities? I hope you understand my dilemma. We don't have the capacity. We need to inspire people around us, but we don't have the lack of resources and the finances. So my question to you is, what is the best route ahead? Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas. Yeah, it's a great question, and you've got some great experience. I'm sure you can help us with this issue. But you know, the biggest thing I think I can think of is that there's incredible untapped potential in people, and we haven't expected enough out of people. We talk about culture and strategy. My students in my class last week were presenting about culture and strategy, and did some research and presented back. And they talked about how most people, when they approach their organizational culture, they think about processes, they think about technology, and they think about the people. But almost all of our investment is in process reengineering or in technology upgrades. And we just assume that then people will figure it out. And I think that's just backwards. I think we've got to start by investing in the people and the potential of each person and creating high expectations. Part of my job 20 years ago at Gallup was to interview people who wanted to work at Gallup. And there was a question we'd ask on the interview. We'd say, who sets higher expectations for your performance, you or your manager? And it's amazing to me how many people said, well, my manager says I should sell 50,000 of this, and that's just too low of a goal. But since that's the goal, that's all I'm going to do. What if that manager had said, how good can you be? How much do you think you can sell? And then how can I support you like that? And so I think there's just so much untapped potential in people if we would just trust them and then get out of the way. We focus too much on process and maybe not enough on high expectations, high outcomes, and then big time support. But rather than prescribing the steps to an activity, that we define the outcomes and then let the person figure it out based, again, on what their talents are and their best approach. I should say Jordan offered in the chat to me privately here as a follow-up answer to the last question around how do we put students in a position to consult with companies. I should clarify, we don't have them consult on the product strategy or the operational efficiencies or things like that. There's some of that we really stay in our focus on the workplace culture. So we go in and do an engagement survey and audit their engagement. And then that's really our expertise, is to say, how can you create a more effective work culture and an environment for your students to thrive? So we don't coach them about everything, but we really do stay focused on that culture. But again, if we get the culture part, to Lucas's question again, if we get the culture part right and unleash the potential in every person, I don't want to say the rest of it takes care of itself, but the rest of it's more set up for success if we're intentional about that, the human part of it first.
Time now. So
Great
I'm just gonna
questions.
do a quick closure on that. When we talked about can strength be a limitation, I always referred back to people who give me feedback on my use of command. So I certainly think it's contextual there, so that's great. Part of the conversation, I think, around what Lucas is asking us is sometimes we in South Africa can be overwhelmed. Okay, so sorry, there's somebody trying to speak in the background. If we can just ask them to mute for now. We'll have an opportunity to be able to re-engage. I think, Tim, what we were just saying from a South African point of view, sometimes we can get so totally overwhelmed about the circumstance we find ourselves in. And I think your point about, do we have great talent in South Africa? The answer is absolutely. The question is, what do we choose to do about it? And I think sometimes, how do we eat an elephant? It's one step or one bite at a time. And if this group here, if we come away from this community and we can just impact one person at a time at the universities, then I think job done from that.
Well said. Well said. Well, Yender, I hope that this has set you and Mahrit up for what's to come, because I'm excited about the partnership that you have with these organizations, with these universities, and the way that you've really served as a wonderful extension of Gallup across the countries of Africa. And so thanks for leading the work on the continent and for really being the face of strengths and the face of Gallup to them. So you're really the expert from here on. And I hope that I've been able to share some things that are helpful and love to be a resource for you moving forward.